The rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the cracked pavement of the small, forgotten town of Eldridge. The streets were empty, save for a lone figure hunched under the flickering glow of a street lamp. Her name was Clara, a woman in her late 30s with eyes that had seen too much and a heart that had been broken too many times. She clutched a tattered umbrella, her knuckles white as if it were the only thing keeping her from being swept away by the storm, or by life itself. Clara had always been afraid of failure, afraid of rejection, afraid of the unknown. Her fears had paralyzed her, keeping her trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and regret. She had abandoned her dreams of becoming a writer, settled for a dead-end job at the local library, and watched as the years slipped through her fingers like grains of sand. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, she had reached the end of her rope. As she walked, her mind replayed the events of the day, the dismissal from her boss, the eviction notice on her apartment door, the voicemail from her estranged father, his voice trembling with regret. It was too much. The weight of it all pressed down on her chest, suffocating her. She felt like she was drowning, and the storm around her only amplified the chaos within. But then, through the haze of rain and despair, she saw it. A small, dimly lit bookstore tucked between two crumbling buildings. The sign above the door read, "The Unshakable Heart." Clara hesitated. She had never noticed this place before, and yet it felt familiar, as if it had been waiting for her all along. Pushing the door open, she was greeted by the scent of old paper and the soft hum of a record player in the corner. The shop was cozy, with shelves crammed full of books and a fireplace crackling in the back. Behind the counter stood an elderly man with kind eyes and a warm smile. His name was Elias, though Clara wouldn't learn that until later. Want to know how to stop running from the storm and start dancing in the rain? Subscribe now, and let's uncover the power within you. "Welcome," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "You look like you could use a good story." Clara blinked, unsure of how to respond. She hadn't come here for a story. She hadn't come here for anything, really. But something about Elias's presence made her feel safe, as if the storm outside and the one inside her couldn't touch her here. I don't know what I need," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias nodded, as if he understood. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to a worn armchair by the fire. "Let me tell you a story." Clara hesitated but obeyed, sinking into the chair. Elias pulled a book from the shelf and began to read. It was a tale of a young woman named Amara, who had lived centuries ago in a village much like Eldridge. Amara had faced unimaginable hardships, the loss of her family, betrayal by those she trusted, and a world that seemed determined to break her. But through it all, she had discovered a strength within herself, a strength born not from the absence of fear, but from the courage to face it. As Elias read, Clara felt something shift inside her. The words seemed to weave themselves into her very soul, unraveling the knots of fear and doubt that had bound her for so long. She saw herself in Amara, not as the broken woman she had become, but as the unshakable heart she could be. When Elias finished the story, Clara sat in silence, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in years, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. "How did she do it?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. "How did Amara keep going when everything seemed so hopeless?" Elias smiled, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. She realized that fear is not the enemy. It's a part of life, like the rain outside. You can't stop it from falling, but you can choose how to face it. Amara learned to dance in the storm, to find beauty in the chaos. And so can you. Clara sat with those words, letting them sink in. She thought of all the times she had let fear dictate her choices, all the opportunities she had missed because she was too afraid to take a chance. But no more. She was tired of being a prisoner to her own mind. "Thank you," she said, rising from the chair. I think I know what I need to do now." Elias nodded, his smile deepening. "Remember, Clara, the unshakable heart isn't one that never feels fear. It's one that keeps beating, no matter how fierce the storm." As Clara stepped back into the rain, she felt a strange sense of calm. The storm still raged around her, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid of it. She walked with purpose, her head held high, her heart steady. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. She would face it with courage. And so, Clara began to dance in the storm, her unshakable heart leading the way.